welcome everybody to our Broadcast Pioneers Annual Scholarship Ceremony. Normally, we'd be having this at the Ballot Golf Club, be eating lunch together, but of course, present conditions prohibit that. So we are live on Zoom. And so we have our students with us, and we have Vince Giannini, who's general manager at WPHL, Channel 17. We have Lee Richards and T. Morgan of Classic Rock WMGK 102.9. And we have a little rundown sheet here that I'm going to try to follow as best I can. I'd like to introduce my colleague and the co-chairman of the scholarship committee, Mr. Bill Kelly. And first of all, try to let you students know how you were picked, why you are our scholarship winners. And we look at three things. We look at, first of all, your academic achievements. All of you are very, very wonderful scholars from your transcripts, we can see. We also look at your contributions to your community, your school community, but also the wider community. And all of you serve. We have a lot of things, and apparently your plates are all full with things you do both at school and for your community. And thirdly, we look at your communication skills. We looked at your writing. We asked you to write a little essay. You all did that. And we found that your writing skills are excellent. Clear thinkers and thoughtful writers. So those three characteristics made our scholarship committee choose you as our winners this year. So hopefully we're missing Patricia from Drexel. Hopefully she'll be joining us soon.
I'm actually here.
Oh, there she is. Okay. Hi, Patricia. I didn't see you. We have everybody. We have all 9. First of all, we would like to introduce our students. So we'll introduce you one at a time. And we have a few questions for you about some of the things you're involved in at your respective schools. And so I'd like to start with Katie Agnello. Katie, you are involved in a couple of productions at Temple. Katie is a sophomore at Temple. You're in a couple of productions at Temple. One of them is Update Ahora. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that's all about?
Sure. So I was a producer for Update Ahora last year. So that is a 90-second news brief that runs every single day in Spanish. And there's also an English version called Update Now. Right now, I'm actually producing for the senior show to that. So that is a 15-minute news broadcast. We've already done one show this semester, and we're doing another one actually next week. So we just cover local news, some international, a lot of Temple news, and we're just looking to reach out to the Spanish community and see so that they can see themselves represented.
Wonderful. And you do another Spanish show too. Did you have that on your resume? It's the Lo Intimo?
Yes, Lo Ultimo is the 15-minute show.
That's the 15-minute show. Okay. So you're a Spanish speaker?
I am not. I took it all throughout high school, so I do write it a lot. So I mostly produce and help write and help figure out stories, stacking the show, things like that, making sure that the right voices are heard, that we set up interviews, things like that.
Wonderful. And you get feedback from your audience at all?
We do. We've been trying to work on our social media a lot. So we like to connect with people online.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katie.
Thank
Bill?
you.
Well, thank you, Katie. And next is Alessa Bani. Alessa Bani is a senior at Temple. And Alessa, you currently work as an equity reporter for the Idealist magazine. Talk a little bit about the latest story you've written, would you please?
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. The latest piece that I did for the magazine was looking at the intersection between sports and social justice. So a big part of the piece was looking at the late Coach Chaney's legacy. He was a basketball coach at Temple University. and just the amazing accomplishments he did spearheading, being a Black man in Division I sports. And then looking towards the next generation, at Temple University, we had a new organization formed called Owls for Justice. And it was student athletes across the university who came together and basically decided they needed to have a platform to respond to police brutality, civil unrest, and just using their platform for speaking out. And it's just looking at the culmination of the past and the present and where the future is going.
Well, thank you, Alessa. We appreciate that.
Thanks.
Jeff?
Next is Abby Barringer. She is Temple University junior. And one thing on your initial application, Abby, that interested me was your interest in writing comedy. You said you're a head writer for Temple Smash. I looked at YouTube a little bit. I saw it there and thought some of the skits were quite funny, quite clever. And I have a question for you. How do you write comedy? What's the secret?
It's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of hard work. I really love working for Temple Smash. It's part of TUTV, so kind of connected to Ahura and the Ultimo, like we've heard before. But Temple Smash is a lot of fun. The writing process is really interesting because, I'm the head writer, but we have a whole writing team. So we all work together and it's a lot of collaboration, but there's also sometimes when I'm just writing by myself. And it's something that, it is a lot of fun, as you might initially assume, but we also put a lot of hours into this show, usually working in the studio in Annenberg Hall when it's not the pandemic. And we also work on like short film sets. So I love doing it.
Do you get in a room together and try your stuff out and see what's the funniest stuff? And
yeah, definitely when it's not the pandemic, we're all we'll spend all day together just like throwing out ideas. But we do it over Zoom when it's like this time, obviously.
so someday you'll be writing for Saturday Night Live, huh?
Hopefully.
And tell me about the Temple Improv Club. Is that something you like to do? Improv?
Yes, definitely. I'm currently the vice president for Temple Improv Club. It's a little bit on hold because we can't have in-person meetings, but it's also so much fun. I get to lead meetings and just like teach new people improv if they've never done it before. Like we get a lot of people in who have never done it before, but it's something that a lot of people want to try because it is fun, but it also teaches you how to be more confident, and it teaches a lot of like public speaking skills and just how to use your creativity.
What's the first thing you should know when doing improv?
The first rule of improv is listen. So think before you speak and listen to what your scene partner is telling you so that you guys can cooperate and work together.
Very good.
That sounds great, Abby. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
next we have Leslie Grossman. Leslie is a sophomore at Temple. And Leslie, what is your proudest accomplishment as a media production student at Temple? Would you share that with us?
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently involved in 3 student television productions on campus. So I'm the lead editor for Temple Tonight, and I also edit for Temple Smash. And I've actually edited a sketch of Abby's, but I'm also an assistant director for Temple Update.
Well, thank you, Leslie. We appreciate that. Jeff?
Okay. And next is Marissa. Marissa Harchuk, did I say it right?
Close enough.
Okay. How would you say it?
Arzak.
Harzak.
The C is silent.
Okay. Marissa, one thing that on your application that really interested me was you work with an organization called I Can Bike.
Yeah, that's a volunteer program that I help with over the summer. It's not really communication related, but it's one of my most favorite things that I do. It's like my favorite thing of the whole entire summer. I always tell people I would do that 4 times over than spend my vacation at the beach. But what I do is help kids of all ages with mental or physical disabilities learn how to ride a bike. So it's a very rewarding process.
Wonderful. they bring their own bikes and then they get lessons from you and others?
Sometimes we provide them with bikes. Yeah, there's a lot of funding that goes in with that. So there's a lot of organization of donations from various organizations in the community.
Wonderful. And also you're an oral communication consultant.
Yes.
I forgot to say you're a sophomore at Delaware.
Yes.
Yes.
So my job is basically just helping undergraduate students with any part of the speech process, whether it's coming up with an idea or their visual aid or their delivery methods. They can just come to me at any point. I'm actually working today after this is over. And people just schedule appointments and I can help them with whatever they need help with for a class.
Great. Bill, thanks.
Thank you, Marissa. And next we have Nicole Magette. Nicole is a junior at Temple. Nicole, would you kindly share with us how Temple's prepared you for a career in broadcast journalism?
Excuse me, but I'm sure. Temple has kind of went over and beyond in preparing me for a lifetime in broadcast journalism. For all my peers who go to Temple, I feel like we can agree that Philadelphia we kind of use as its own classroom. I feel like there's so much to explore and learn just being in the city of Philadelphia, and like our professors and our peers, like everyone just motivates us to become the best versions of ourselves. And we have professors who have like real world experience in either newsrooms or in other like settings, whether it be production or in front of the camera. They just have so much experience and so much to share with their students, which I, for one, like, it's just been an amazing experience, excuse me. And I'm also a reporter for Temple Update. So I'm kind of like, I work with Leslie, and we've been able to tell a lot of great stories this semester and in semesters past. Virtually and in person. We're back to doing in-studio shows, but I can't thank them enough for all the preparation they gave me.
Well, we congratulate you and we thank you, Nicole. And Jeff?
Okay. And next I'd like to introduce Patricia Olabanji. Patricia is a sophomore at Drexel. She's a musician and she runs something that intrigues me. It sounds wonderful. It's called All Ears Music. Patricia, can you tell us a little bit about your organization that you head up there?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, like Jeff said, my name is Patricia, a sophomore at Drexel University. So I think about my junior year or sophomore year of high school, I started teaching lessons to children because I noticed a lot. I grew up in a predominantly Black area, and I kind of noticed that a lot of people of color, a lot of children of color didn't really have access to like private lessons versus some of their other counterparts in school. So I started my organization called All Ears Music, where I teach predominantly people of color and people in marginalized communities how to play instruments and just about music theory. And I also teach at my church, which is also free. Yeah.
So yourself, what is your specialty in music? Do you specialize in one instrument? Or are you multi-instrumentalist?
I do play a couple of instruments, but I think my first instrument is violin.
Do your students have concerts where they like a recitals where they get together and play for family and friends?
Yep. So for the past 2 or 3 years, I started having a summer recital, which I think is really great. Last year had to be online because of COVID, but it was, I think, my biggest recital yet. And it was great. My kids loved it. So yeah.
So what kinds of instruments did you teach them how to play?
It was mainly violin and piano. I think those are my 2 main instruments that I taught that year.
I have a friend who owns a music shop, and he says that so many young people now are not going with traditional instruments anymore, but they're composing on their laptops with GarageBand and other music composition programs, and playing synthetic music or created music on their computers, as opposed to, and maybe moving away a little bit from traditional instruments. Do you find that's true?
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. I study music industry here, so it's a lot of music production on like a computer. But I think I have a great advantage because I can actually play these instruments, which gives a different creative side. So I definitely encourage you to like learn the actual instrument, but then also like the whole music production thing is another skill on its own, which is great to have.
Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. That sounds like a wonderful organization. Bill?
Well, we thank you, Patricia. We wish you well. And next we have Anna Rodefeld. Anna, tell us a little bit about a documentary that you just wrote. It's entitled Mic Drop, MIKEDROP, Mic Drop. Would you please?
Yeah, so a couple semesters ago, I took this class at Temple University that was just genres of media production documentaries. And the class project is essentially just make a documentary. We kind of work all semester on that. So myself and like another student team, we kind of all work together to make this film about women in media. So we interviewed like a bunch of different like women who have careers in broadcasting in media around Philly and students of media as well, just to kind of hear their stories about their careers, like any challenges or triumphs that they've had, and just learn a little bit about the media industry in the process. It was a really great experience and a great way to learn about documentary filmmaking in general, but also getting experience producing and directing like a full-fledged film. Because by the end of the semester, we had like a 15-minute around then documentary that we were then able to submit to film festivals. And we got into a film festival in Texas where we won a Best Student Filmmaker Award. We were a semifinalist in LA and then LA Film Festival. And then we were also selected for film festivals in Ireland and the UK. So it was this really cool thing to see like how this thing that had started as like a class project was able to have this like worldwide footprint. It was viewed by people, not just in like Philadelphia, not even just in the US, but kind of like all around the world. So it was this really awesome experience to get to work on that kind of project. And I'm really proud of the work that myself and my team put in on it.
Well, thank you, Anna. I appreciate knowing about that. Thank you for filling us in, and we wish you well. And Jeff?
And we have Danielle Rutledge from Temple. Danielle, you're a junior, I understand, and you are interested in radio. So you said you want to be a radio host. Well, what kind of radio host are you looking to be? What interests you? What aspect of radio do you find most interesting?
That's a great question. Yeah, all facets of radio are kind of interesting, and I'm really enjoying being a student now and being able to learn more and more about that. Especially, I transferred to Temple in the semester where we switched to online, so that in-person kind of experience has been limited for me so far. But it looks like hopeful for the fall, so I'm really excited for the new opportunities with that, along with like podcasting as well. But kind of my two passions are music and radio. And I would really like to just be an on-air personality or radio DJ. Yeah, I would just love to be able to mix those two things and create something special. So
that's great. And we have two radio legends with us today, who you'll hear from a little bit later, Lee Richards and T. Morgan. So you might have a lot of questions for them. And you're doing something now, you're producing radio for a network called His Sign Network. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I actually, I did that in the past. Yeah. It was it's actually a Catholic radio station. And I knew some people in my church who she was looking for an intern to help her with the production, for gathering talent, for on-air talent, and just helping her with the production and everything. So I came along board and I was able to get some really valuable experience and learning. I would take and transfer calls to the radio host. I would cue commercials and music. I would select new artists and new music talent to put on the radio. And then I was even able to be interviewed one time for about an hour as a guest. And that was really, really special. So looking forward to more opportunities like that in the future for sure.
Good. Well, that's a really good start. Really good start. So we're going to move now into our keynote speakers. And we're going to start with Vince Giannini from WPHL Channel 17 in Philadelphia. A little background on Vince. He served as Vice President and General Manager of WPHL TV 17 since 2003. Right after the Phillies won the World Series in 2008, he brought the Phillies back to WPHL in 2009. And also manages a strong relationship with the Mummers. And PHL is very well known for carrying the Mummers Day Parade for years on Channel 17. Prior to coming to WPHL, Vince served as a station manager at WPIX TV in New York and as Director of Finance and Administration at KTLA TV in Los Angeles. So as a long-serving broadcast executive, Vince can talk a little bit about what skills, qualifications, and attributes he looks for in potential new hires. So let me turn it over to Vince Giannini of WPHL TV 17.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Bill, for inviting me today. And let me first say congratulations to all of you. And especially, it was great to hear a little bit about what they saw on your applications that allowed that committee to pick each one of you, the 9 of you, for your scholarship. And you certainly are well-deserved. So congratulations to each of you. You know, I guess I want to start. 7 of you went to Temple, and many of you may know that the College of Communications is named after Lou Klein. Lou Klein, the late, great Lou Klein, was a good friend. He was very much a mentor to me. And when I moved to this town, Lou was the first appointment I had. Lou came into my office, sat with me and said, listen, you're going to be good for this town, and I want to introduce you to a few people. He was the connector that introduced myself and my peers at the other TV stations. He would bring us to the congressman, to the senators, to the managing director of the city, to the police commissioner. He'd also get us involved in a few boards. To this day, I still serve on the Police Athletic League, the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters, all because of Lou. I've spoken in a few classes at Temple over the years. Not sure, you're all sophomores and juniors. I might not have spoken to any of your classes because I was usually talking to juniors or seniors, and it's been obviously a couple of years since I've been there in person. But deep ties to Temple and to Lou, so just wanted to mention that. Listen, your decision to pursue higher education is not always easy, you know, but it's rewarding to those of you who stick with it. At the end of your 4 years, or if your path is to get an advanced degree, your education, you're going to set yourself up for independence and financial success in this world, and you can make a great impact. And it was great to hear the stories about the impact that you're trying to have in the community and giving back, because giving back is a very important part. It's also one of the things that feels great. But I was asked to speak more specifically about what we look for in a new hire, especially those coming right out of school. You know, in order to succeed, you need more than just the knowledge of how to do a job. You need to have key attributes. So every time we have a new hire at the station, we're looking for a few things. We're looking for somebody who's hardworking. We want to find that someone who's willing to give 110%. Dependability. You know, we need someone who's going to be there every day. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's getting harder and harder to find. Timely. We need people who want to be to work on time and be there a little early. You're always looking for somebody who's honest. Always, always, always be honest with your potential employer. If there's a situation that comes up that doesn't allow you to be there for a day, just tell them the truth. If you're working for a good place, they're going to be understanding. Obviously, we need someone to have great ethics and high integrity. You're always looking for a team player, right? How do you support others? And are you willing to learn from others? And most importantly, bring a positive attitude. So when we're interviewing people, you know, everything that you put on your resume should help you identify these characteristics, right? So if you list something on your resume, you know, those of you, someone was, I think it was Patricia, you were teaching some kids in the city, people of color, how to work with instruments. Be sure to list that on your resume and tell a story of how you worked with one of the kids, you know, how you listened to what they wanted, it's gonna let, you know, the potential employer know, oh my goodness, you have the skill set, you know, or those of you, Abby, you're improv, you're an excellent public speaker. I can already tell most of you are really good speakers. I mean, almost all of you got in front of a crowd of people you don't know, were able to speak concise, eloquently. Those are great traits when you go into an interview. You know, I have 3 kids of my own. I have a sophomore in college right now, is at Penn State, and I have 2 that are graduated 2 years ago and 4 years ago, I guess, at this point. So, and I'd look at them when they were going on interviews, and they'd show me their resume, and I'd say add something in there that allows you to tell a story. To me, that's one of the most important things. You know, if you had the ability to get an internship in the field that you're hoping to get into, that's always a great plus, but it's not a necessity. You know, if you've had part-time jobs throughout high school and through college, if you've had, you know, if you've worked during the school year as well, list those things. Find a way to talk about some experience. It could be as simple as you were working in the kitchen at a local restaurant, or you were a server or a hostess. Let people know how those experiences has taught you to work with a team, taught you to follow direction, taught you that you needed to be punctual. That's what an employer is looking for, especially in your first job. You don't have a breadth of work experience to bring to the table yet, so they're looking for those things. A quick story, when I think back to when I first got into broadcasting, it was in Chicago. The one part of my resume that Jeff left, my very first job in broadcasting was in Chicago at WGN TV, a great local TV station in Chicago where I grew up. When I went in for an interview, posted on the wall was a note from the general manager about the person who they were looking to replace. He had gotten promoted into the corporate office, and it told a story about how Tom was willing to do whatever it took. There was no job too big or too small for Tom. Here was a guy who was a CPA, was in the finance department, but he was running a remodeling project at the station. And the story went that he came in over the weekend to make sure that when all the remodeling was done, that all the desks were put back in the exact spot, so that when his coworkers would come in on Monday morning, they could get right to work and wouldn't lose any productivity. Now, Tom was a financial manager, right? That was not necessarily part of his job title, but he knew as the project lead, he needed to make sure that things were done. It's the extra effort that he put in there, and that story stuck with me. And I look at, no matter what you're working on in a project, you know, those of you who are working, many of you are working on Temple TV shows and different skit shows, as you know, no matter what piece of that production you're working on, it's the sum of the parts that makes the whole. Every one is important. If someone's in charge of printing out scripts to hand them out to people, it's just as important as the person writing it. And the reason I say that is, if they hand out the scripts in the wrong order, guess what? Your production's not going to go so well. You know, if in your first job, somebody asks you to make a ton of copies of things, don't look at it as, oh my goodness, here I am. They're giving me the menial task. They're giving you an important task because it's going to be the one that gets handed to the client, or it's going to be the one that they're going to use in a big presentation. And if it's not right, things can go wrong. I just want you all to recognize that every component matters. So whatever that task is you're given, give it your best. You want to be that employee that everybody wants to work with, that they want on their team. You know, to me, it's very important to get these attributes in all our new hires. Culture means a lot at the TV station. We pride ourselves on, when somebody does leave, it's usually because of, you know, they're moving out of state. It's very rare that people leave to go work for another TV station from PHL 17. It's because we give them a great environment. You know, we respect that each and every one of you are individuals, and we allow you to be individuals. You know, I always say good ideas come from everywhere. You know, the biggest thing I missed during this pandemic is the ability to walk around and talk to all the employees in a given week. You know, I often get on Zoom calls or team calls with all my direct reports almost every day. And the people who are working on key projects for me, I see them all the time. But it's the other people at the station that I miss some of that interaction with. So just know, wherever you're at, always give an opinion. If someone says, do you have a question? If you're in a large meeting, go in prepared to ask something. Is there something you want to know about that company you're working for, that station you're working at? You know, always maintain a positive outlook. There are many, many pressures today. But it's important to tell yourself you can handle all of these things. You are all very poised. That comes off without question, that you are all well prepared to move on when you graduate. But don't let outside pressures get to you when you eventually do go to work, right? Try to separate those things. It is hard. We're all human beings and feelings matter. But try to be focused on what you're working on. You know, if I were looking to hire today and I were interviewing 3 candidates and they all had similar education and similar work experiences or no experiences at all, right? If they were all fresh out of school, the differentiating factor to me would be, how do they fit in with our staff, right? You know, we're looking for that person who's going to be the great coworker. So again, as you put your resume together and you're in an interview, just remember to tell a story about something. It's a critical component. It's the one that it's going to stand out compared to other people's resumes and to their interviews. You know, smile. The number one tool you have, if you want to put people at ease, smile. It takes everybody, it relaxes them. You know, you look around, I look on this call and I see all of you looking back, and it makes you feel good, right? Just remember that. People enjoy when someone else smiles. Be positive, work hard, and 9 of you will all succeed. I am very certain of that. The involvement you've had with your activities, you know, be sure to talk about those in your interviews. I mean, I can go back to, it's been a long time since I graduated college, but when I think back at my resume, I was a good student, not a great student, but my resume had things on it because I was heavily involved, like all of you are. And I was able to talk about all the things I was involved with and sound passionate about it. Passion is something that is hard to teach, but each of you are very passionate about the clubs you belong to. You're passionate about the activities you're involved in. Just let that come through when you interview with somebody, and you're going to be great. One more thing, one more thought. My closing thought is this. Remember, learning never stops. When you leave school, it doesn't matter. You learn every day. And I look at the people who work for me and think, the moment you think you're done learning is the moment you're about to slip. You will stop growing because you stop learning. I've been in this business a long time. I graduated college in 1987. I believe I learned something new every single day. And I believe that the next person who comes into my role will do it better than I can. Why? Because hopefully they'll take upon everything I've built and take it to the next level. So if you always believe that if there's always room for growth, it will also humble you a little bit. So with that, I wish you all congratulations again on your scholarship, and I look forward to hearing the other speakers. Jeff, Bill, back to you guys.
Thank you, Vincent, very much. Jeff, our next visitor.
Our next speaker is Lee Richards. Lee is a Temple grad and a veteran of radio, television, and film. She is a true broadcast pioneer in that through her struggles, she has broken ground for women in the industry. And she has many stories to tell along that line. During her career, dating back to the late 1960s, Lee has worked as a reporter, a public affairs radio host, and a disc jockey. In fact, she was one of the original WFIL boss jocks. And those of us of a certain age remember when WFIL was the #1 AM station in Philadelphia. Lee can now be heard on KYW, but also, and probably more frequently, on classic rock WMGK 102.9. And Lee will share her experience as a woman breaking into radio in the late 1960s. Lee Richards.
Thank you, Jeff. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
In the photo, I'm the one on the left. People were asking me who's the beautiful woman on the right. Her name is Christy Aledo, and she's a lovely young woman who works at Channel 6. And that picture is from an in-person student symposium that we had before COVID. We had to do this year's one online in this type of format. And I strongly urge all of the students to go to the Broadcast Pioneers YouTube page and watch that 1 hour program with so many career tips. It's unbelievable. It will help you. Now, I've been listening to everyone and like digesting your stories. Everything has a story. Everyone has a story. All I can say is my first impression is your future in broadcasting is bright. This is now the age of inclusiveness and diversity, which opens a lot of doors which were closed to me starting out. It was a long time coming. Congratulations. First of all, you are all amazing for our winners. Now, if you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. Have you ever heard that expression? Or better put by Maya Angelou, you can't really know where you're going until you know where you have been. And basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about where women in broadcasting were to where they are today, where the sky is the limit. Imagine that there was a time when a woman couldn't have a prayer at her dream job or career. And today that door is wide open for you to take your chosen path. It wasn't always like this. This is history. A lot of what I'm going to tell you is history. And if you didn't live through that history, it could be lost to you. So I suggest that you Google some of what I'm saying and to get background on it if you're interested. One of the turning points for women was the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Those were a few of the states that eventually passed it. However, all states did not approve the Equal Rights Amendment. And even today, the United States does not have an Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution. The argument over the ERA continues today, 98 years after it was first introduced. In 2020, they finally got the 38 states needed to ratify it. So what's holding it up? They're arguing over whether the deadline to pass it had expired in 1982 or not. It's 2021. The House has now approved the ERA. And right now, as we speak, the debate continues in the Senate. So it's still not a done deal. Read more about the ERA and the history of women's rights. It'll fill in a lot of that background stuff. So back to the 60s and 70s. It wasn't enough for a woman to have desire, talent, and drive to work in broadcasting. It would take more to change the status quo. Not even the ERA changed the minds and behavior of too many. Even in the 80s, even after I was already in radio and TV, I interviewed for jobs only to be told they couldn't hire me because I am a woman. No kidding. One program director was a real piece of work. After speaking with me for about 15 minutes, he got nasty and he said, "You seem like a nice lady. If you want self-fulfillment, take a course at the Y or read a good book." What a jerk, right? I just kept going. Those were some of the things that I faced, but I overcame them just by hanging in there. Perseverance, you got to put that on your list of things that you want to strive for. Please get an internship if you can. Great experience and contacts. I've had many interns through the years to give a leg up to others, and partially because I had no internship. None existed for me. There were internships back then, but mostly they went to men. Real life was my internship. That's right, real life. I'm a firm believer that every experience in our lives makes us who we are today. Every experience, that if you work at McDonald's and you cook up the fries, it goes to make you who you are today. Every job, every relationship, the good times, the bad, provide us with learning opportunities. And you get something from each thing you do. We learn responsibility, self-discipline, and dedication, skills that help in many situations. Did you ever wonder how and why old folks seem so wise? They have knowledge and experience in real life, the best training ground. When I graduated high school many years ago, broadcasting was a man's job. It was called that. It was a man's job. In fact, I was doing a talk show at a little station out in Delaware County, and a woman called up. She said, "What are you doing there on the air? You're doing a man's job. You should go home and cook and raise the children." A woman made that call. I'll never forget. To get an internship or a job was almost impossible if you were a female. As I said before, I was told to my face, we do not hire women. So if there are no work-related internships and opportunities, create them yourself. Volunteer for anything in the community, and there may be multiple rewards for your future. It's not only about earning a buck, but being part of the community. Vince even mentioned the community too. And you never know who you'll meet along the way. As a community volunteer since my early life, I can look back and say that those many experiences helped me later in my work life. Most importantly, I learned how to work with others and be a good team member. All of this has helped me throughout my career. That's when I stepped up to my community volunteering even more so and gained valuable experience. I served on several board of directors in my early to mid 20s. I'm telling you, early on. I was asked to run for Philadelphia City Council before my 25th birthday, and worked alongside of many notable Philadelphians from corporations, politics, and the top professions. These people shared their wisdom and generously gave me great advice and opportunities. Vince mentioned Lou Klein earlier. He was so encouraging and so helpful to me. I wound up sitting on 2 different boards with him, and he always greeted me like family. That's how Lou was. So he was a nice person and successful as well. And as I said before, every one of your life experiences make you who you are today. In essence, I created my own successful internship. Today's woman can achieve almost anything given the chance. And now you do have that opportunity to excel and even surpass your own expectations. Explore the many paths before you. Keep open your mind and goals. One path may lead to an unexpected place where you can hang your hat and thrive. And just remember that a positive attitude serves you well. Employers do notice who is not only competent, but who is cooperative and pleasant, and someone who is truthful and has great ethics. It all counts. Prima donnas and Donalds need not apply. So here's to our 2021 scholarship winners and wishing them all the best. You are the future of broadcasting. You can make a difference. Good luck.
Well, thank you, Lee. You certainly blazed a trail. You're a true pioneer, not only for yourself, but for the younger generation. Thank you, Lee.
You're welcome.
And if anyone has questions, probably some of you probably have questions formulating in your minds right now. We have some time set aside at the end for questions. So if you could hold them then, and then we'll ask away the last 10 minutes or so of our get together. Right now, I'd like to introduce to you T. Morgan. T has been a leading voice in Philadelphia radio for decades. Another true broadcast pioneer, and T is a member of the Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame. In 1967, during Philadelphia's, quote, Summer of Love, T initiated a format on WIFI Wi-Fi FM called Underground Rock or Progressive Rock. primarily based on album cuts that work together to create themes, moods, contrasts, and so forth. This was a revolutionary idea. This format was then adopted nationwide by other progressive FM radio stations, and the format became known as AOR, or Album-Oriented Rock. T has been a mainstay in Philadelphia radio for decades and is currently an air personality on classic rock WMGK 102.9. And T will talk a little bit about longevity in broadcasting, how to thrive in an ever-changing broadcast environment. So, T. Morgan, hello.
Hello. I was just thinking when you said that, longevity, the most important thing is you have to live long. That's the number one criteria. Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate all those who earned the Broadcast Pioneer Scholarship. Since I was on the committee that selected you, I know just how qualified you are. And please take advantage of that when Vince was talking about putting things on the resume. This should be front and center because people know that you were in with some great competition. I mean, it was difficult picking the winners every year as to who deserves these, and you certainly did. So be proud of that. The next thing, it's funny because I'm listening to Vince and Lee, and they took about half of the things I was going to say away anyway, but I'm going to say them anyway because I think that in this day and age, common sense should be the most important thing you take with you, but it seems to be often lacking. So hopefully you'll glean a little bit of something from what I have to say here. First of all, when you're looking for your first job, don't get discouraged. It's not easy getting these jobs. It really isn't. I know that everyone says, yeah, you're going to be successful in it, but it doesn't seem that way when you first start out. Try to do something to make yourself stand out. Don't be cocky, but be real and passionate. As a program director, and I have been program director for 5 different radio stations, when I look to hire people, I look for people who have some more initiative than the average person would walk in. One guy, for example, actually drove 6 hours one way to deliver a tape in person. Now, I didn't hire him because he did that, but it did make me listen to his tape. Now, you have to understand, you get hundreds of tapes, and sadly, you don't have the time to listen to all of them. You feel bad, but you would be doing that and nothing but that as your job. So anyway, when offered a job, take what you can get and always keep your eyes on something better. There are no bad jobs in the media. There are only perceived bad jobs. They're stepping stones. I have a good friend of mine, Dick Summer, who's actually in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a disc jockey. He was working all night at a radio station, and he was determined to be the best all-night disc jockey in the entire country. Well, it did lead to bigger and better things, and actually ended up working at WNEW in New York, and WNBC in New York, and places like that. So whatever you do, do it all out. Don't think, hey, I'm on all night. No one's listening to me anyway. No, be the best you can possibly be at all times. When I first started out, I was very fortunate to work with some of the very best people in radio. I hope you have that good fortune because you really learn a lot from the people you work with. And don't be intimidated by them. I was working with High Lit. I mean, it's like he had like 68% of the population in Philadelphia listening to him on the radio. So I think, wow, to even talk to this guy was a privilege, but to actually work alongside him was just mind boggling. But don't be intimidated by their reputation or who they are, because they do have a lot. They have a life experience you do not have. And I certainly needed a lot of advice. I started out in radio when I was 15. So I didn't think I knew everything. In fact, I knew I didn't know everything. So I was asking a million questions, maybe even became annoying after a while. The other thing is, from day one, as Vince especially emphasized, be a team player. Make yourself indispensable. Understand, while one monkey never stopped the circus, you can make yourself important and valuable by contributing to everything that goes on as part of a team. Volunteer for everything and anything. You'll find that you'll end up working on holidays. You'll miss family get-togethers frequently because you volunteered to work and somebody else didn't. But do it with a smile and always give thanks for the chance to do that work. Be generous with your time and your money. Get involved in local charities. Some of you already are. I heard and saw in the resumes you had that you're very much involved in that. I can't tell you how many events I have volunteered to take part in over the years as an MC or just doing something to help behind the scenes. It really does a lot to enhance your status in the community. And the people that you work with will appreciate it too, because even though maybe you're the person that's on the air like I was at the time, and people know who you are and they say, oh, gee, I'm going to listen to T. Morgan now because he came to our event. The station also benefits. So if you're behind the scenes at the station and you still want to do something to volunteer, it's important because it helps the radio station or the television station that you're working at. They will benefit from it. And the station is successful, then you are successful as well. And it certainly sounds like some of you really understand that already. Learn as much as you can from the people you're working with, and do that with even the people that might be hesitant to share things with you because they're afraid that you're going to get their job. As a program director, I always hired people that I thought would be good enough to replace me. And I know many of my peers said, that's crazy. They might replace you. Well, if they do, they do. But that's beside the point. I'm not going to be part of a Peter principle, which is an old-fashioned idea where you hire people who are less talented than you are because you don't want to lose your job by them coming and take your job. No, I would think that my job is made easier if I hire people who have a brain and are able to function on their own and let them do it, guide them wherever necessary and have some, parameters for them to work with, but basically know that you're still in charge and they know you're in charge. And if you work with them rather than make them work for you, you'll be much better off. So learn as much as you can from the people around you, because you never know when you might be actually doing their job, even if it's only on a part-time basis, or maybe eventually even replace them. Remember, it's important, very important, to remember this one thing. It's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice, because regardless of your position, treat everybody the same. You'll gain everyone's respect. I was very good friends with the cleaning lady, for example, that came in and cleaned the studios when I was on the air all the time. We used to have her on the air and just joke around, things like that. She appreciated it. The rest of the company appreciated it because it made us look more human. And we are more human. It wasn't a put on thing. It was real. Respect everybody and you'll earn their respect. Every job you'll encounter, you'll have some real jerks you'll work with, and maybe even some of them will be your boss. Okay. But don't lock horns with anybody, because that's one way you could be barred for life from being involved in the industry. No one likes to have someone on their staff that has a reputation of always arguing. You end up maybe winning the battle and losing the war in those cases. So that's not to say never have any ideas or not to complain about things that are definitely wrong, but pick and choose what they are and be sure you have all your ammunition lined up, and people will respect you. If you don't complain all the time, they say, well, I never hear anything bad from this person. They probably have a pretty good idea. So let's sit down and listen to it. And again, you can learn something from everybody. It really doesn't matter. Even the jerks, you might just find out that you don't want to be like them. That's what you learn. Give credit when credit is due. Don't take the blame with all kinds of lame excuses. Just say, hey, it's my fault. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time, whatever. People appreciate the honesty. Do things like answer, if you're on the person who's on the air or somebody's in the spotlight, be sure to answer every phone call that's given to you or every email or text or whatever. These fans are important. Don't neglect them, because without them, you don't have a job. Stay on everything that's new and current. As Vince said, always be learning. If you're not learning something every day, you're wasting time somewhere. You need to know more and more things, especially in this day and age where things are changing as we speak. There's always something new to learn. No matter how you're feeling, go into work every day with the attitude that you're going to try to be perfect. And of course, we can't always be perfect, but it's always best to try. Even if you're sick. I remember one time doing a show at WIBG, actually lying on the floor. I was so sick. And people that listened to the show had no idea that I was sick. The engineer did, because he had to take the microphone and put it on the floor with me. But the listeners had no idea. I sounded like the same happy-go-lucky good guy that I always was. You'll encounter tough times at any job. So remember, don't get too high on the good times and don't get too low during the bad times. Both will pass. It's always good to just go steady as you are. So with that, we wish you all the best. Congratulations again to all of you.
Thank you, T. Morgan, for your words of wisdom and the Philadelphia legacy that you left all of us. Thank you. Jeff?
So right now, we would like you, if you have any questions, to ask them. And our guests would be very, very happy to answer your questions. Anybody have something to ask, either Vince, Lee, or T?
Don't be afraid. Speak up.
I can ask something.
Yes, Leslie.
I have a question for Vince mostly because I'm interested in broadcast. How would you recommend for like somebody in an entry-level position if you want to explore another avenue that might not be a part of your job, or you want to move up potentially after you've been there for a while? How would you recommend that someone approach that or have conversations about that with their superiors?
Sure, I think the best way to do it is, after you've been there for a little bit, at least, 6 months to a year, to show that you've been in that role, right? And you've been doing a good job, I'm sure. You just approach your direct manager about it. And, I've had instances at our station where somebody in our creative department was brought into one role that was a little more, I'll call it more PR related. And having been there, she came in because she wanted an entry-level position. And she then learned that she really wanted to become a writer producer. And she wanted to edit and go out and shoot stories and produce them. So she went to her boss and said that. And she said, do you mind if I go and talk to Vince as well and let him know that I'm interested? So she talked to both of us, and she was actually interviewing at other stations to try to find that path because we didn't have an opening in that role. And she was going to accept a job at a competitor, but it wasn't in the field where it wasn't what she wanted to do. She just thought she'd have a better opportunity there. I just looked at her and honestly looked at her and said, I think the opportunity will be here for you here. Just give us a little bit of time as we, she said she had an idea for a show as well. We talked about it. I said, you know what? Why don't you work on some of those segments? And you fast forward a year later, she was in that role that she always wanted, right at the station with us. She never left. Now she's one of our best producers we have, creating a regular weekly show as well as producing promotion. So I would tell you the way to do it is you need to approach your boss and say, listen, I really like what I'm doing. I think I'm still learning, but I think I'd be well suited for, if you position it as, you're not trying to immediately jump. You just think, is there a way I can show you that I'm capable of doing that? Can you give me a chance to produce? We had her first start by editing something for a community affairs show. It wasn't something that there wasn't a line of people wanting to work on that particular show, right? She said, I'll do it. She showed us she could edit really well. The rest is history. Now she loves that she never left. She thanked me for talking you out of leaving. I did it. I talked you out of leaving, not just because it was the right thing. It wasn't just the right thing for us, it was the right thing for her. And I knew that job she was going to try to take wasn't going to get her to the end she wanted. And she appreciated the honesty. Sometimes you talk to people, not just as their boss, but as a friend, and you need to give them honest advice. So if you're in that position someday, I would just tell them that, how can you try to prove that you're capable of doing that?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have a question. Thank you guys so much for speaking. I benefited greatly from hearing all of your experience. I was wondering, for those of you who are involved in radio, specifically radio DJing as well, could you talk a little bit about, I guess, the process of how you got to be an on-air talent? And were you at entry-level positions before doing production stuff, before you were able to kind of prove yourself and be on air, or what was that process kind of like?
Lee, in deference to you being a female, you can go first if you'd like.
Okay. I think both T and I followed a different model in our careers. I actually came to the table a little bit older than you because, as I said in my talk earlier, there were no opportunities at that time for me as a woman. So, I had a couple of babies and then started out, which was even tougher. But I had to do everything as close to home as possible, with nothing more than a 2-hour car ride to a job, which may seem like a lot, but it's important sometimes to start at a little market and work your way up to a major market such as Philadelphia. You can't really just walk in the door and say, here I am. Oh, by the way, Danielle, we're going to do a symposium in October, similar to the one we did last month about television. We're going to do a radio symposium, which is going to be a star-studded show. And if you don't watch, I'm going to personally come and find you. So we had to find opportunities to make it happen. At Temple University, I was on WRTI, the student station, which was then totally a student station, and doing everything that I could there. However, I had made a promise to myself and my husband, I would give it a year, this broadcasting thing. If I didn't have a paying job within a year, I would give it up because money was tight, time was tight. And so I really had a goal, and that was to have a paying job. After 6 months at RTI, I actually got my first paying job. Found it on a bulletin board in the radio station. So I applied, got the job as a news person. Now, one of the requirements of a news person is to be there. That was an hour and a half ride each way just for that job, but certainly well worth it. Then the personality on a Saturday morning called in sick and they had no one to go on the air. So they asked me to step on, go on the air. They said, do you have a license? Back in those days, you needed a license from the FCC to be the engineer on duty. I said, oh, sure. Sure I do. And I called a friend who had a license just to make sure that I didn't legally get in trouble. And I had him come and sit with me. And the first thing I did after that show was over, I studied and went to the FCC, took my test, and got my license. And ever after that, I was on the air as a personality instead of a news person. It just happened. I didn't make that happen. It was given to me. I got back into news several times after that because I could do it and because somebody needed me to do it. But you just take your opportunities as they come. Don't say, I'm just going to be one thing. Don't say, I'm going to be the anchor of the 6 and 11 o'clock news, and I want no other job. No, you pursue every opportunity because fate has a way of directing you to the right place. Where you wind up and where you could very well have a happy career may not be what your original goal was. So leave your mind open, leave your path open, and follow your dream. T. Morgan, your turn.
Well, thank you, Lee. I don't know. I wrote a book called Confessions of a Teenage Disc Jockey. So there's an awful long stories about how I got in the radio, but the short of it is this. In fact, if you want to go to my website, you can learn a lot more about all that. tmorganonline.com. It's all one word, tmorganonline.com. Happy to have you on board. Anyway, basically what I did was when I was in high school, my hobby was learning everything possible about music. I mean, to the point where I knew not only the name of the artist, but who wrote the song, how long the song was, what label it was on, who the publisher was. I just memorized all this stuff. I didn't know anything about Latin. I flunked vocabulary in Latin, but I did know about this. And I actually found a way to worm my way into a record store where the owner of the record store actually owned a radio station. And he was very generous in allowing me to spend time at the record store, going through things and learning even more about the music. And again, long story short, one day they needed somebody to get on the air, and there I was at age 15 on the radio. So then fast forward to when I went to LaSalle University, I didn't have any thoughts of being in radio anymore. It was just kind of like a fun thing I did in high school. But I started listening to all the different radio stations. Say, there's something missing here. The people are not getting all these great songs that are on albums that are selling very well. They don't hear them on the radio. So I had the nerve to walk into a radio station and approach the program director and say, hey, I have an idea for a new format. He didn't like the idea at all. Well, he said it was kind of okay. But I was overheard by the guy who was a sales manager at that radio station, who then approached the owner of the station with the idea. And I got a phone call the next day saying, we'd like this to have you come in and formulate this new format for us. So that's how I got involved in radio, the initial anyway. Any other question?
Did that answer your question?
As to how you might get involved in radio is everybody has their own story. But the only thing I can tell you is work at it every single day. If this is really what you want to do, you have to work at it every single day. I used to do stupid things like take the newspaper and just read it out loud. That's it. Just read the newspaper. My parents thought I was crazy. I was like, what the heck are you doing? You're reading the commercials? You're reading the ads from the newspaper? I said, yeah. I'm going to see if I can do it. That's the kind of thing you have to do all the time. Listen to tapes over and over again. Be very critical of yourself and constantly be trying to improve what your delivery is. It isn't easy getting that first job, especially now. The first radio station I was on was WICK in Scranton. It's now automated. Like many of the radio stations that you might approach to get a job, they're not there anymore. The jobs are gone. It's syndicated radio or automation or whatever it is. Those opportunities are not there. So you really have to take advantage of your school radio station or finding ways to get an internship job at a radio station and then volunteer to do things like, oh, you're doing a commercial? Do you mind if I do a voice on one of those kind of things? And this is how you get discovered. There's just all kinds of ways to worm your way in, so to speak. But never give up if you really believe this is what you really want to do. But I warn you, if this isn't something you're really passionate about, you're never going to make it because the competition is tough, but it's worth it. Work at it. I never regretted 1 minute of all the work I put into getting this job. It's the greatest job in the world. It really is.
And you're one of the greatest coworkers, I have to say, too.
Well, thank you, Lee.
Lucky enough to work with T. We can see each other in the wee hours of the morning. I have no makeup on. He hasn't shaved. That's what radio is all about. That's why I like radio. Yeah,
well, I always say I'm in radio because I want to be heard in that scene.
Right. But
hence you don't see a picture of me on this thing right now.
I do have a suggestion. Danielle and others, always have your backup plan. Make sure your education is complete and don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that is the basket of broadcasting. Because if it doesn't work out, you need to have a career. You need to be able to earn $1. Radio today is heartbreaking. As T mentioned, so many jobs have been lost to syndication, to automation, to what's that satellite network?
Don't mention it.
Oh, you know what I'm saying. I forgot. I keep mixing the two up. When they merged, I forgot which one.
Don't even worry about it. They don't exist.
Anyway, the point is, you need to have a backup plan. So you must have your degree. You must have an education. Yes, it can be done without that, but it's easier for you in this day and age because they will ask, where did you graduate from? What is your background? You also have to be multifaceted in the field. To say you want to do one thing, to talk on the radio or to be on TV, you have to have knowledge of digital editing, digital composition. You have to be able to address the multi-platforms that are emerging today and will continue to emerge. In the past 5 to 10 years, our entire field of communications has evolved and changed so much, so fast, from the beginning of last century, where the first major electronic medium was radio, and radio ruled. It ruled. I mean, in the age of my parents, they had the big band shows, they had variety shows, they had the Lone Ranger, they had comedy shows. That was the television of the time. People would cluster around the radio. Then with the advent of radio, with that of TV, radio had to change to survive. And so it emerged as a new entity in the 50s on the path of what it is today. Television then ruled. Now, television is not the same. This goes back to the 1934 Communications Act from the Federal Communications Commission, that the airwaves are free. I don't know about you, but I'm paying a fortune to watch TV and shows. And if you notice, the regular original television networks do not put on, for the most part, the kinds of shows that I grew up watching, the great comedy shows and the dramas and such. It's sports, and it's a reality TV and news programs. To get your great content now, you have to subscribe to one of the many peripheral services, Hulu and Prime Video and Apple TV and all those. And Netflix, I mustn't forget Netflix. The thing is, as it is in front of your eyes, in your lifetime, kids, it has changed that much, that fast. In fact, all the major awards shows we're on recently, the SAG Awards, the Golden Globes, Oscars are coming up. Well, Oscars is just for film, but the other ones included television programs, best drama, best comedy, etc. With the exception of one show, This Is Us. All the other ones were from the streaming services that got the nominations and awards. Only one was a original network program. So does that give you an indication of where this is going? It's anybody's guess. It will continue to evolve, and each one will top the other to survive. And communications will continue to adapt and change to survive. What's coming in the next couple of years? I don't know. It's your guess is as good as mine. But all I can say is I wish you all the very best. Don't give up. Persevere. Dedicate yourself to what you're doing. And if you can't, you shouldn't be doing it. Done.
All right. One other thing I could tell you, Danielle, is you should probably do a podcast. That would be a very good thing for you to do. Even if you're talking to yourself for a while and your friends, it gives you good practice, and it gives you the feel for actually being on the air.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm interested I have ideas for laying the groundwork of getting a podcast started. So I'm excited to embark upon that. But
I have one more idea. Also, the big thing emerging today are the YouTube channels, where young people have, appointed themselves community spokespeople. And there are some kids who are making millions of dollars with their YouTube channels. So you may want to look into that to pay for your college education.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it. We're running a little bit over time, and I know we just lost Anna. She had to go to a class, and maybe some of the rest of you do also. But we do want to say some thank yous. Bill, you have some thank yous to hand out.
Yes, please, Jeff. And thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Vincent and Lee and T. Morgan. This is one of my favorite times of the year when we can celebrate our young college students who have participated in our Broadcast Pioneers annual scholarship event. It's a shame that we're not able to greet each and every recipient in person along with their parents. After all, it does take a family to make this happen. And it also takes the faithful support of our scholarship sponsors. And they are Ari Bluestein, Monique Braxton, the estate of Sylvia Cauters, Daniel Lerner, William J. McCloskey, Art Moore, Cal and Lucille Rudman, Donald Sharp, Joe Tarsia, and Marlon Taylor. And on behalf of the Broadcast Scholarship Committee, we applaud you, our new generation of talented young men and women. We're very proud of you, and we thank you, thank you, thank you. Jeff?
And I want to thank our scholarship committee, Paul Gluck, Betsy Lebron Tuttleman, Pat Delsey, Brother Jerry Molyneux, T. Morgan, and of course, Bill and I served on the committee too. So thank you for the committee for working hard and doing all these evaluations and coming up with these wonderful 9 students, all of whom are female, by the way. We didn't plan it that way, but it worked out that way. And so I think that Lee's talk was very apropos to what we're doing today. Also want to thank technical support, Bill Gelhaus, president of Broadcast Pioneers, for his technical support in our Zoom conference today. And finally, before we go, next month's Broadcast Pioneers meeting will be a celebration of 50 years of WKDU, 50th anniversary reunion. So thank you very much and good luck to you all. We'll be sending your checks to you, be sending them to your home address, the address you put on your initial application, unless you tell us otherwise. That's where it will go. So goodbye for now, farewell, and we'll see you in the media.
Jeff, just one quick thing.
Yes.
Those of you I put in the chat, if anyone's interested in applying for an internship, I put my email in there. By all means, grab it before the Zoom goes away and feel free to email me.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you, T, thank you, Lee, and thank you so much, Vince, for taking the time out of your very busy schedules.
Good luck to all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We are out.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill.
Yipper.